Hi everyone, thank you for joining our webinar today. I'll start by introducing myself. I am Michaela and I joined the NZSDA November last year. I've been working alongside Melissa for the last little while, which has been really cool. Slowly getting to know some of our members and getting to know the signage and display industry, which has been fun. Thanks for coming to our webinar today. Our guest speaker today is Anna Ramm from Network HR. So Anna is passionate about people and business. She has over 20 years experience in senior operational management, HR, recruitment, learning and development across many industries in both the UK and New Zealand. We've partnered with Anna and her team at Network HR this year, and they will be assisting us by updating all of our employment contracts and documentation, offering discounted advisory services to our members, with the first hour being free. And Anna will also be delivering 4 educational webinars throughout the year. So the webinar for tonight is quick wins for attracting, engaging and retaining your staff. So just some admin before we get started with that is that if you have any questions throughout the webinar, please put them in the Q&A section and not in the chat. We're going to use the chat later for another exercise. We just thought any questions in that bit and then we can get to them at the end of the webinar. You can post them at any time throughout though. So if you think of something, just chuck it in there. Cool, Anna, I will pass over to you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Michaela. So let's see if this technology works and I'll share my screen for you. Okay. So hopefully there you've got the slides up. So is that right, Michaela? It's all good?
Yep, all good.
Awesome. Okay, so good evening, everybody, and thank you for attending the first webinar in our 4-part business information series. As Michaela said, this evening's webinar is all about quick wins for attracting and engaging and retaining staff. And we'll also be discussing some of the pitfalls when failing to use the 90-day trial period. We felt this was quite an interesting topic, bearing in mind that the 90-day trial has recently come back in December. So before we start, let me tell you a little bit about me. So I was born in a town near Naples in Italy and grew up in England. After graduating university, I fell into recruitment and HR, consulted for a number of different companies across the southeast of England, which helped me develop a great understanding of how businesses worked. Regardless on the size of the company, the type of industry it was in, the core fundamentals of business were the same. They all had the same pain points, and often they were the people were most troublesome. Working my way up from the bottom in the UK, I ended up as the CEO for a medium-sized consultancy where I opened up 10 branches across the UK, employing over 100 staff. In 2008, I moved to New Zealand and worked for a few boutique recruitment and HR consultancies here in Wellington, and identified a major gap in the market and opened up Network HR in 2015. So I saw the need for a new type of consultancy that gave business owners and senior managers the tools they needed to help them grow the business and their team alike. So without further ado, let's start talking about the employee life cycle. So we all know that people are the heart and soul of any business, but what's that saying? One bad apple? For small to medium-sized businesses, people can make and break the success of your company. Creating an engaged workforce is a delicate balance of identifying the right people to do the job, setting clear, achievable objectives, understanding what makes them tick. And above all, you need clear objectives and boundaries to grow a strong team culture based on your core values and beliefs. Over the years, I've helped a number of companies achieve employee engagement through fairness, transparency, and rewarding high performance. For example, a few years now, I've been working with a transport company. When I first worked with them, they had an 80% staff turnover. I don't need to tell you how detrimental high staff turnover can be on a business. Not only was it having a negative impact on the staff morale, but it was also affecting business performance, productivity, and their reputation. So what did I do? I went straight to the source, of course, and asked the staff. I asked them lots and lots of questions, confirmed that their comments would be confidential, and went to work and presented a collective summary and strategies for the company to consider. They didn't do everything I suggested, but the strategies they put into place have now seen that the 80% turnaround rate decreased to 2 over the course of the last 24 months. And how did we do that? Well, we started at the beginning of the employee cycle, and that's attract and recruit. So before you can attract a new employee, you must first figure out what you need and what you want. They're two very different things. Recruiting a new member of staff is an opportunity to review your current team, their skill set, what are they good at, what aren't they good at, the services that you offer, and what you'd like to offer in the future. Take the time to ask yourself, do you really need to hire someone? Assess whether the workload can be reallocated or streamlined. Maybe you just need some new software or tech. What's the purpose of the job? List the tasks that you want them to do and make sure that any overlapping is discussed with the existing workforce, so it's all worked out ahead of time. What are the key skills and qualifications of that person? What do you really need from them? What would be the ideal personality or attributes to bring to the team so that your team is well-rounded? There are lots of programs out there on the market that can help you identify personality traits. Personally, I'm a fan of DISC. I like its simplicity. It's very much to the point, and it's very easy to read and very easy to administer. Lastly, what's your budget? You need to make sure that you do your research, review current market trends, work out if the salary or the hourly rate that you're going to offer is actually going to attract the people you need. Now that you've got an idea of what you're looking for, it's time to put pen to paper and write a job description. This will help you further define what you're looking for. Not only does a job description help you refine your needs, but it's also a legal requirement. Remember, when dealing with employees, you must keep the words good faith in the back of your mind, as the act of acting in good faith is one of the key pillars of our employment law here in New Zealand. Therefore, when the Employment Relations Act 2000 states that your employment agreement has to include a description of work to be provided to the employee, it means that you need to write a job description. And the job description gives details to the individual of what they're going to be doing. And it's a living document. And what I mean by this is it should be changed and adapted as the business grows and changes. However, make sure that all changes are documented, however small, and make sure it's in writing, and have this in the back of your mind. If it's more than 20% of the role is changing, then it has to be done in consultation with the employee, and you both have to mutually agree it before the changes are implemented. So what does a job description look like? What should it have on it? A good job description should be clear, concise, and comprehensive. It should accurately represent the role and the expectations associated with it. On the screen, you can see that I've got an example of a job description. So this was freely available online, and I just sourced it. The reason why I liked it was it had really clear idea of what it was, the aim of the business, who it was reporting to, etc. But most job descriptions need to have a job title. The title needs to accurately reflect the role and its level within the company. A summary, like a brief overview of what the role is, the purpose, or the importance of it within the company. Responsibilities, a detailed list of specific duties and tasks associated with the role, including any supervisory or management responsibilities. Qualifications, skills, and competencies, they should all be outlined there. It could be anything from the amount of experience that you want that person to have, education, whether they need a degree or not, etc. Their abilities, their competencies, such as communication skills, technical skills, problem solving. It's a great thing to have something in there about your company and your values and your culture. So a brief description of that and maybe your mission statement will give the candidate a great understanding of the company's ethos and what you stand for. And don't forget your health and safety disclaimer. Over the next few slides, we're going to go through the job description, and I'm going to point out some areas that I think are really good and ones that aren't so good. In this section here, you'll see that there are two examples. The top, they both describe the job description and the key skills that they want the individual to do. However, they're just put down in different ways. So in the top example, they've listed it as a key task and then an expected outcome. In the other example, it's just a list. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just whatever you prefer. I'm a firm believer that although business is business, companies are all individual, and your policies, procedures, and systems and processes and documentation should be tailored to you and your values. Fundamentally, both give the employee an idea of what is expected of them, and it's down to your personal choice. The only thing I would try and say is strike a balance between lots and lots of detail in the job description, because if it's got too much detail in, it becomes cumbersome and a complete nightmare to update. If it hasn't got enough detail, on the other hand, the individual doesn't exactly know what they're doing and what they've signed up for. So think, what would you want to know if you were in their shoes? Same principle as before. These sections here cover off the skills, knowledge, qualifications, and personal attributes. The only thing I would say in any job description that you're writing, make sure that you have a disclaimer at the end of the job description. And it will say something like, please note that the tasks and responsibilities listed in this position description may need to be changed from time to time. And as a result, it is expected that the person in the role recommends and or is prepared for changes to the role and this description of any kind. Any material changes will be by mutual agreement between parties and noted in writing. Essentially, the disclaimer is there that gives you the ability to go back into that job description, change it without any major concerns or issues. So you've got your job description, you've figured out what you want, you've got your job description. Now you have to figure out where you're going to advertise for these people. Digital platforms, social media, and community pages are by far the most commonly used method these days. Gone are the days when you used to put an advert in the paper. But don't forget, there's always word of mouth. You'd be surprised how effective it is, especially with non-skilled job roles. On the slide in front of you, you'll see that these are probably the most common platforms people use when looking for new work. Obviously, it depends on the role and it depends on the location. However, generally speaking, most campaigns are sort of run on Seek and Trade Me. Indeed tends to be more for an international, however, it is starting to get more traction here in New Zealand. Facebook, LinkedIn, they all have their place when it comes to putting the word out there and using your own personal social networks. My student job search is perfect for an entry-level type role, and jobs for Google for Jobs and Jura tend to be more internationally used than here in New Zealand. Seek and Trade Me obviously are the most commonest. Everyone tends to use those or at least has an appreciation of them. When using social media, for example, Facebook, community pages, etc., it's best to post the role, but make sure that you put a link back to either the Seek or Trade Me ad, as both of those platforms have great candidate management software that makes viewing applicants' details really easy and communicating with them so much simpler, which you need when you're doing a huge recruitment campaign. So you've got your job ad, you've written it, it's awesome, it's great. So you've decided where you're going to put it. Regardless of where the applicant applies from, always put their details onto Seek. The reason why we suggest this is for a number of reasons: compliance, ease of candidate management, but mainly because of these stats. The stats you see in front of you are actually a real life role that we placed and we received applications for. When you use stats to tailor your campaign, you get the best return on your investment, aka the cost of the ad. It's not cheap. The above campaign is a role we recently recruited, and it was within the sign industry. You can see that the campaign had 14,000 people review the short summary Out of that 14,795 clicked to read the full ad. However, only 38 people applied. When you look at those figures, you think, oh my God, that's not very good. But actually, if you see, it performed 1.2 times better than other ads. In other words, other ads that had been posted with the same job title, the same industry, the same location, only received 17 applications, but our campaign received 38. How did we do this? It takes a lot of skill, but in principle, it's not that difficult if you follow these instructions. So you can see from the previous slide, the advert needed to have a punchy summary to lure people in, and then a carefully written advert that is clear, concise, and easy to read. Seek have a great section on their website that offers insights into how to write a job advert, market rates, etc. The following slides are snippets, basically from their advice section, and I liked the simplicity of how they presented it. So I thought it would be a great tool to share. Always pay for the advert that allows you to put a logo on it. Branding is essential. People feel more confident when they know who the company is and they can identify the brand. It just performs better. Job title. I used to consult with a company that liked to play with job titles. For example, their receptionist administrator was in fact their customer engagement coordinator. Don't get me wrong, the staff loved it, but whenever I recruited for them, I used the terminology that would work best online. In this example, it was reception admin instead of customer engagement coordinator. People like to know exactly what they're applying for. Salary. This is a bit debatable. On Seek, they like you to actually put the salary on. As you can see on the slide, you've got the motor mechanic Smith Auto, and then the salary is 60 to 70. I think it's really dependent. Personally, I find that depending on the role, depending on if the salary is competitive, it really does depend on whether or not that is actually a selling point. Also, you'll see that they use bullet points and headings. You have very little time to capture any potential new recruit. So it's best to make the advert simple, clear, and have lots of white spaces. So headings are a must. In this advert, slightly different, you'll see that they actually have showroom sales consultant, they've got the salary, they've got that punchy summary, the fantastic opportunity exists for that section there. But they've actually started with why join us? So that beautiful heading of why should you come and work for us? You can see that they've put in their bullet points the main key areas or the main key things that are their selling point. So they've chosen attractive salary, generous monthly commission rates, obtainable performance goals, excellent career progression, etc. You need to think, what are your selling points? Why should they come and work for you? It is a tough market out there, and there is a lot of choice. In this example, sections 4 and 5, again, it's got lovely headings, it's got bullet points, it's very clear about the role. There is nothing more frustrating than going through a recruitment process and realizing at the interview that the role that you thought you were applying for actually isn't the role that you've actually gone for. So make sure that the advert has a clear idea or clear details of what the role is and what you are expecting. Make sure that the general tone of the advert is inclusive, clear, and geared to the potential applicant. Lastly, make sure that you tell them how to apply. Make it as simple as possible. And also, spelling, grammar, punctuation is peer reviewed. The last thing you want to do is make sure that have the first time that they see you and have contact with you that you've got spelling mistakes everywhere. So, in today's skill shortage and increasing numbers of foreign nationals wishing to call New Zealand their home, it stands to reason that at some point you would have thought about recruiting someone from overseas. So what are the rules? Since the immigration visa overhaul a few years ago, my suggestion would be to seek advice from a specialist immigration consultant. However, in principle, if you think you're going to recruit from overseas, you will need to be an accredited employer. Then you'll need to show that you have done everything you can to source a New Zealander to do the role and support them through the immigration process. Often employers offer assistance with immigration costs, relocation costs, or maybe sourcing accommodation, or even identifying schools in the area. I recently assisted a client with an immigration and relocation process for an allied healthcare professional from India. Because I helped them recruit her from India, I actually saw them through the whole process to the very end with the assistance of an employment lawyer, an immigration consultant. We ensured that the employment agreement that we had put together for her had several cost recovery clauses. That the company was then protected should the individual decide to leave. We are now 2 years on from when we recruited her, and she's now looking to leave. Luckily, we still have those clauses in place, and she can still pay back the immense cost that it actually costed for her to come over. But as an FYI, the new medium wage in New Zealand for immigration purposes is $31.61 an hour, and sign writers are on the ANZ SCO shortage list. So that should make it easier if you're thinking about bringing on a sign writer from overseas. However, let's say that you've recruit specifically in another country. I'd suggest to use an agency. You will save a lot of time and effort in the long run. However, if you want to do it yourself, do your research. Check out what digital platforms are most used. Are there any agencies or groups that you could leverage off? Are there any associations? Design the advert that works for them in that country. Just because it works here, it doesn't necessarily translate. Adapt your recruitment message to resonate with your target audience. Remember, something that works here might not work there. Social media strategy is a must. We all know that LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter are the most effective channels for employers to engage with talent within developed countries such as New Zealand, UK, US, Europe, Australia, but it's not often the case in other countries. For example, if you're looking to engage with talented skilled workers in Eastern Europe, you'd probably use Vagontekti, probably not pronounced that correctly, which is a social media app that is used by 83% of Eastern Europeans. WhatsApp is a massive tool in Latin American countries. FC2 blog is the top social media site in Japan, and Okut is the most visited social media site in Brazil. So know your market, know your people. Recruiting applicants from overseas can be challenging, but often make great employees as they have the skills you need, they are loyal and bring diversity to your workplace. So to summarize, we've identified what you need, you've created your job description, you've decided which platform you should go on, and the ad has gone live. So what's next? Selecting. So who do we select? Use your needs versus wants list to filter your incoming applications. Divide them into 3 groups. The first group consists of individuals who possess some of what you require and desire. The second group has only got the essential criteria, and the final group lacks both your needs and wants in a new team member. Proceed by reviewing each group, thoroughly examining their CV and selecting the most suitable candidates. You don't want to waste your time. Once completed, give them all a call and undertake what we call in the industry a pre-screen. Ask each of those candidates questions that will help you decide whether or not they are worth your time to interview. Those questions could be anything from, tell me more about what you're doing at the moment, tell me about the applications you use, or even, do you just have a full driving license and can work in New Zealand? If they are good, then ask them to come in for an interview, give them a couple of times and dates, and then confirm the interview via email or text, depending on their preference. Interviews. Well, I was doing some interviews today. They can be painful for all people involved, especially if it's not something that you normally do. Personally, I love them. I love meeting people and finding out all about their skills and experience and whether or not they're going to be great for the job. However, the worst thing anyone can do if they're going for an interview is not to prepare, especially the interviewer. Prepare thoroughly, review the candidate's CV and cover letter beforehand, make notes, prepare a list of questions that are relevant to the role and will help you assess the candidate's skills and experience and their team fit. Create a comfortable environment. Make the candidate feel welcome and at ease. Offer them a drink and ensure that the interview setting is comfortable and free from distractions. Make sure you put your phone on silent or turn it off. Ask open-ended questions, encourage the candidate to elaborate on their experience and skills so that you can get a better understanding of them, and listen, pay attention to the candidate's response and ask follow-up questions to clarify any points. Actively listening helps you gain valuable insight to the candidate's ability and personality, as often it's what they say not in response to the question that you've asked is probably the most revealing. And above all, sell your company. Remember that the interview is not just an opportunity for you to assess the candidate, but also for the candidate to learn more about your company. Highlight the benefits of working for your company and what makes it a great place to work. On the slide, you'll see that I've just put some example questions. At the end of the day, like I said before, this is your company, your individual values need to come across in the questions that you ask, but make sure that you're prepared. So, are they the one? They've wowed you at the interview, they've answered every question perfectly, laughed at all of your jokes, and they seem like a good sort. If you take nothing away from today, please take away, do not offer them the job on the spot. Make sure you check them out. Too many people forget the final step in the recruitment process and regret it later. For example, I'm dealing with a company at the minute that offered an individual who was recommended by another employee. Happens all the time, word of mouth. They were desperately short-staffed and asked this guy to start ASAP. He worked for several shifts and he doesn't have the skills that he said that he had. And unfortunately, he's damaged company property. Now they're in a bit of a pickle. Unfortunately, because they didn't give him a contract before he started, we were unable to terminate within the 90 days and now have to discipline his way out of the business. A costly mistake that could have been avoided had they just waited. Undertaking an assessment of their skills is as simple or as complex as you want it to be. For example, if you had a salesperson, get them to research a company, identify the decision maker and talk through how they would convert them. Or if you're looking for a designer, give them a project brief and ask them to prepare some graphics. Or even an installer, get them to come in for 30 minutes and test their skills. Tailoring an assessment to the role is a must. Make sure it's simple and it's easy to understand. The test will show you more than just their skills. It will show you if they can take direction, listen to instruction, able to undertake the task that you've given them, and allows you to see how they communicate, etc. I appreciate that sometimes, especially in this example with this company, the business needed them ASAP. They didn't have time to do checks. Therefore, my suggestion to you would be make a conditional offer of employment. This allows you to rescind the offer if the criteria of the conditional offer is not met. If you're worried about possibly losing them to another company, then this is your best option. Or if you are short and you need them to start ASAP. Offer of employment. So, what is the difference between an offer of employment and an employment agreement? An offer of employment is normally short. It normally has a congratulatory tone. And an employment agreement, on the other hand, will be formal and carefully worded. On the slide, you can see on the bullet points the various things that are generally considered essential when writing a an offer of employment. Sometimes, and in most cases, you tend to send the offer letter and the employment agreement at the same time. And they're asked to basically sign both and as an indication of acceptance of the role. Can an offer of employment substitute an employment agreement? I often get asked this. An offer of employment should never substitute an employment agreement. They are two very separate things. One, the offer of employment is an initial agreement. It's an acceptance that, yes, they're going to take the role. And then the signature of the employment agreement is that they're actually accepting all the terms that are set around in regards to that role. Having an employment agreement in place is essential because it clarifies the terms and conditions for both the employee and the employer. It allows either party to refer to the relevant clause in the agreement and dispute it. It avoids disputes arising in the first place and later. And above all, they have to be able to seek legal advice before signing. What information should be in that letter of offer? You can see on the slide above, that's what you'd need. Some also detail the position title, the agreed salary, any other benefits, commissions. They may also have details about anything that was discussed in the conversation. So maybe you agreed that you were going to buy uniform or change hours for training or something like that. Whatever you do, it is all in good faith. So how should you send it? Post, courier, email? These days, it's common to send the letter and the offer of employment as an attachment on an email. While you might have a conversation with the candidate to negotiate terms of the role, an offer of employment agreed to during a telephone call or face-to-face conversations is generally not legally binding because it's a he said, she said. However, you still need to apply good faith. You should always make formal offers of employment in writing and keep a signed copy of the letter in the new employee's documentation. Therefore, you should have a copy, they should have a copy. When you're sending it, make sure it's PDF'd. The amount of times that I've seen employment agreements that are sent in Word, and then there's been a problem with the staff member and they've, shall we say, tampered with it, and you have one copy and they have a copy that's completely different. It's likely the candidate is going to have questions, so be prepared. And if you don't know the answers to them, send them to someone who does. Employment agreements. Well, that's quite a huge topic of conversation, but in principle, all individual employment agreements must have the following. They have to have the name of the employer and the employee, a description of the work that needs to be performed, an indication of the place of work, the agreed hours, the wage rate or salary, any benefits that go with that or commission structure or any of that sort of thing, statement in regards to time and a half and their statutory entitlements, any other matters agreed on such as trial periods, probationary arrangements, the nature of the employment, is it permanent, part-time, permanent, part-time, is it fixed term, and it needs to have a clear and plain explanation on how to resolve employment relations problems, especially in regards to personal grievances raised in the 90 days and a statement in reference to sexual harassment personal grievances that can be raised within 12 months. However, in reality, unfortunately, most companies who have employment agreements tend to not remember that they are living documents, so should be updated with current legislation and also adapted to the changes in the business. In addition, most people have to that list, most people have the disciplinary process maybe, or examples of serious misconduct or misconduct, confidentiality, IP, restraint of trade clauses. They may put uniform requirements on there or out of area travel allowances or tool allowances, depending on the nature of the company. Your employment agreement should be an extension of your company's policies and procedures. It should cover you for most situations and should be considered a living document. So make sure that it has version control on it. We've covered off a lot in a very small space of time. So in conclusion, we've established that to effectively recruit a new member of staff, whether it's nationally or internationally, you need to be clear on what you need and what you want. Write a well-balanced job description that brings together the company's focus and values. Summarize the role and tasks that you're expecting them to undertake, the competencies and attributes needed, and a disclaimer. Write a great advert with bullet points, headings, and copy that sells not only you as a company, but the job itself. Make sure you pre-screen the candidate before you formally interview. This will save you so much time. Keep interview notes, as individuals can ask for them under the Privacy Act. Assess their skills, reference check them, ensure that you're talking to a previous manager, not their mate. Use other forms of vetting, criminal records checks, drug and alcohol, and make sure that you use a 90-day trial period properly. So the next part of our topic this evening, strategies to retain talent in your company. People are the heart and soul of any business, but as we know, to small to medium-sized businesses, they can make or break the success with very little effort. So in this first section, we talked about attracting and recruiting. Now we're going to discuss onboarding, which is one of the key aspects of engagement. Research from Brandon Hall Group found organizations with strong onboarding processes improve new hire retention by 82% and productivity by over 70%. They are some really huge figures. Limited talent pool and high staff turnover are amongst the biggest challenges companies face today. So it's important to engage and retain employees that you already have and new ones from day one. A strong onboarding process can help you establish that with very little effort and cost to you, the employer, will help you accomplish great first-time engagement. When people start at a company, the onboarding process is the first glimpse they have into your culture and how the business operates. Therefore, having a structured onboarding process helps you get off to the right foot. Don't be afraid of having more than one person involved in the onboarding process itself. It's a great way for the team to meet the new staff member, and generally most people like imparting knowledge, so they will feel more engaged not only with the new employee but the company. Statistically speaking, according to NorthPass, a worldwide survey company, they found that companies that have a structured onboarding process saw 60% improvement in revenue year on year. They also found that 63% had an improvement in customer satisfaction scores. An excellent onboarding experience breeds employees that are not only productive in their given job, but are also committed to the growth of the organization. So what have you got to lose? Let's fast forward the new recruits journey within your company. They've passed their 90 days and they're now fully fledged members of the team. How do you keep them motivated? By developing a range of employee engagement strategies, you will not only increase productivity, improve retention, enhance customer satisfaction, enhance innovation and creativity amongst your team, create a positive work environment, and improve overall performance. At its core, employee engagement refers to the emotional commitment and involvement that employees have towards their company. What does that mean? It basically means that at the end of the day, a happy workforce who feel empowered and engaged will produce more and be more effective. They are more enthusiastic about their work. They feel a sense of purpose and a connection to the company. They will often go the extra mile just so that they can contribute to the success. Employees are more productive, they're motivated, they'll stay for longer periods of time, and they will improve the organizational's culture and create positive working environment. On this slide, I've just put some stats together just to show you why engagement is so cool. So over the years, Gallup has undertaken a number of worldwide employee surveys within a number of industries, and here are some of their findings. 85% of employees are not engaged in the workplace. That's pretty high. 73% of employees are considering leaving their jobs. Low employment engagement costs companies millions each year. Companies with higher engagement workforces are 21% more profitable. Good company culture increases revenue by 4 times. And 3 professionals cite boredom as their main reason to leave their job. 37% of employees consider recognition the most important. Only 29% of employees are happy with their career advancement opportunities, and 85% of employees take more initiative when they receive feedback in the workplace. At the end of the day, engagement is all about your people. What makes them tick? Knowing what makes them tick will help you develop strategies that will help you increase your productivity and ultimately your revenue. So let's take a couple of minutes now and think and answer the following question and use the chat. Name one thing that you could do that would show your team that you appreciate them. And Michaela, you're going to have to do it for me because for some reason I can't see anything else other than my slides. Are you there, Michaela?
I am here.
Oh.
Waiting for some.
For anybody?
Yeah, no, not yet. Oh, we've got one that says morning tea and it's in all capital letters.
Sweet, I do love a morning tea.
We've got another one, birthday, annual leave day.
Oh, yeah.
And we've also got regular reviews.
Cool. So showing appreciation to your employees can definitely go a long way in building a positive and productive work environment, which over time translates into great culture that rewards high performance and engaged workforces. Some hints. So it can be anything from recognizing employees for their hard work and achievements. It could be publicly acknowledging their contribution in team meetings through to company-wide communications. Showing appreciation in a meaningful way to them. It could be, just like you said, a morning tea or a birthday. It could be giving gift cards to their favorite restaurant or writing a personalized thank you note. You will be surprised how the simple words of thank you actually how far they go. Investing in your employees' learning and development, offering them training, workshops, or opportunities for advancement, that's always a plus. Offering flexible working arrangements. Ever since COVID, flexible working arrangements have definitely shot up in the must-haves for most employees. That ability to be able to work from home and come into the office or change more flexible hours is definitely a plus point. Offering competitive benefits, perks, other things. It's not all about the money. Sometimes it can be as simple as giving them a paid day off, just as you suggested for their birthday, or a gym membership, or anything that you think that your employees will value. The list is endless. The important thing is to remember that every team is different, every company is different. So get to know them, undertake surveys, have meetings, discuss it over a morning tea. Be transparent and just give them feedback. Negative as well. Often we learn a lot more with negative feedback than positive. So don't shy away from it. Knowing the rules, so policies and procedures, something that we all love to hate. Knowing the rules provide a sense of order predictability, and fairness, which are important for creating a stable and harmonious team environment. They are the foundation. They are what provide the framework for how organizations operate and help ensure that everyone is on the same page. Without robust policies and procedures, none of the things that we just talked about will have any real longevity. People like to know their parameters. But what ones do you need? On the slide, you can see just some of them. The list is endless. Literally, you can have policies and procedures for everything. However, in principle, you need an employment agreement. Every employee needs to have a written employment agreement that outlines the terms and conditions of their employment, pay, hours of work, leave entitlement, and what their job's going to be. This is a must. If you don't have one, you're going to get fined. Code of conduct is a must. The reason why a code of conduct or an employee handbook, either or, can be done is because it sets a clear expectation from you to them of what you believe to be acceptable and unacceptable behaviour and what happens if they break the rules. Health and safety. You need one of those because of the Health and Safety at Work Act. Health and safety is required. It's all about your commitment to providing a safe work environment and procedures and on how to manage the health and safety hazard and risk. You can then have employment, equal employment opportunities policy, bullying and harassment policy, privacy policies, grievance procedures, leave policy, training and development, anything you think of. But fundamentally, just like I said before, think about your company. What are your values? And create policies and procedures that help you create those values in the workplace. So to summarize, attracting skilled staff. Build a strong employer brand. Highlight your company cultures and values and the opportunities to grow. Showcase testimonials from current employees. Offer competitive compensation and benefits. Do your research. Find out what you need to offer to attract top talent. Utilize effective recruitment channels. Use those online job platforms, social media, networking events, employee referrals to reach a wider pool of candidates. Provide clear job descriptions. Engaging skilled staff. Provide opportunities for growth. It's all about learning and development. Encourage open communication. Promote work-life balance. Retain those skilled staff by offering development opportunities, creating a positive work environment, and providing competitive benefits, and implement performance feedback systems. So basically, just like you said, regular reviews. Adjust your strategies, monitor your recruitment, and stay up to date with trends. At the end of the day, by implementing strategies and in your company that can attract, engage, and retain skilled staff, will ultimately drive your business forward. So you've got your member of staff, you found them, you've given them an offer letter. We talked about how to write that, and an employment agreement. The one big thing that I get asked quite often about is about the 90 days. So in December last year, all employers now are able to offer a 90-day trial period. Fun fact, it doesn't actually have to be 90 days, even though it's called 90 days. It can be 30, 60, or 90. Trial periods are, if introduced legally, and I say that again, if introduced, enable employers to dismiss an employee up to 90 days into the employment and stops the employee from raising a personal grievance for unjustified dismissal. However, it is not a get out of free jail card. You can also have a PG raised if they feel that there is discrimination, sexual or racial harassment, pressure about union membership, continuity under Part 6A of the Employment Relations Act, if the employer does something that unjustifiably disadvantages them, and if an employee starts working before the contract is signed. I will repeat that again. If the employee starts working before the contract is signed, the trial period is null and voided. Often get asked if the 90-day period can be extended. The answer is no. And also, what is the difference between a trial period and a probationary period? Trial periods have a maximum limit of 90 days or 3 months, whereas a probationary period lasts about 6 months. Probationary periods do not have the same legal protection as a trial period. However, both require the employer to act in good faith. The Employment New Zealand website has great information about 90-day trials and probationary periods. And I've just got a couple more slides and then we will wrap it up, all about the 90 days. So when can I use a 90-day trial period? You can use it in principle, you can use it basically for a maximum of 90 days for a new employee only. So only new staff that you recruit can have a 90-day period. If they've worked for your company before, even if they were a casual or part-time or whatever that sort of stuff, it can't be used. If you still need to have some sort of a testing period or validating period, then go for a probationary period. That would be your better option. What is required in the written agreement? So basically, what words should you use in the employment agreement? A trial period must be outlined in writing, and it needs to state the employer may dismiss the employee within the first 90 days of employment, in which case there is no entitlement to bring a personal grievance for unjustified dismissal, and the date on which the trial period starts. The parties may agree to a period of less than 90 days, provided that it is clearly set out in written terms. In other words, you need to have it in writing. Employees need to give notice of the right to seek advice on the terms and conditions and reasonable opportunity to review them. Check the drafting of a trial period in your employment agreement. Make sure that the clause is valid. Ensure that the agreement is signed before the employee is due to commence work, and check if they're a union member, because a trial period is completely different in a collective employment agreement. Often they don't have them. When should I send the employment agreement? The employment agreement should be given to the employee days in advance. We tend to advise a minimum of 5. This is so that they have enough time to seek advice. And don't make informal offers of work to potential employees before providing them an employment agreement. And always make sure that it's in writing. When does the 90-day period start? An employment agreement must specify when the trial period starts and finishes. For example, this can be from the date of the agreement is signed or from the date the work starts. Either or, it needs to be in good faith, and also it has to be, employees on a valid trial period must be treated the same way as of employees who are not. Common reasons why it fails or why it's invalid. And really, we've probably covered them all off, but fundamentally, if they've worked for you before, you can't do one. If they weren't informed or didn't have the right to seek advice, it's invalid. If it wasn't put in writing, if the wording agreement does not comply with Section 67A of the Employment Relations Act, it was invalid. If the employer did not give notice within the 90 days, so like if they were going to terminate them, and if it has gone over its 90-day period, is therefore invalid. And lastly, how can you terminate an employee in 90 days? Basically, if notice is to be given in the 90-day trial period, the employee is no longer on a trial period, then the employment will continue. In other words, if it goes past the 90 days and you haven't terminated, then they will become a fully fledged permanent member of staff. If the employer gives notice at the end of employment and the trial period is found to be invalid, then the employee may raise a personal grievance. Essentially, in the 90 days, the top tip is schedule reviews within trial period so that the time frame is not missed. The employer is then in a position to consider how the employment relationship is progressing. Any matters should be raised in good faith, and both parties need to understand if there is a problem. You need to make sure that you're not misleading and that you are responsive and communicative. In summary, when used correctly, the 90-day trial is a useful tool. However, given the frequency that trial periods are still being incorrectly drafted, implemented, and then invalid notice periods given, employees are wise to seek advice when contemplating negotiating a trial period. Many employees are still found liable by the Employment Relations Authority, have made errors because of the trial period, and it's quite costly. So, over the past hour, we've discussed how to attract, recruit, engage, and retain your staff, as well as navigate your way through the 90 days. Managing these processes can be stressful, costly, time-consuming, which is why I'd suggest thinking through what type of person you're looking for. What do you need them to do? How are you going to get them? And when will you need them to start? This will help structure your recruitment plan. Get a professional to review your employment agreements and offer letters to make sure that what you need and are up to date with today's legislation. Think about how and whom is going to conduct your onboarding process, and make sure that you keep up good communication within the 90 days, especially if they're not performing the way you'd hoped. I'd like to thank you for listening, and to the NZSDA for this opportunity. Our next session will be on Thursday, the 9th of May, and we will be discussing workflow management tips, cash flow quoting, invoicing, and debt management. Any questions? Oh, Michaela, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and hopefully I've stopped
Perfect.
you as well.
All right. So we've just had one. It says, if on a 90-day trial, an employee has time off on ACC, would it be unreasonable to extend the period, and would that be legal?
Would it be legal? No. Is it unreasonable? No, which is why it would then be a mutually agreed situation. So technically speaking, no, 90-day periods can't be extended. However, if there are extenuating circumstances, then maybe you could have a conversation with the employee, and if they're in agreement, then it could be then deemed as a probationary period, not a trial period. Hopefully that makes sense.
Cool. Another question. How often should you meet with a new member of staff during the 90 days?
So I tend to advise to do like a 6-week type check-in. If everything's going well, then just generally do it on a 6-week. If it's not, then the suggestion would be that you would meet with them maybe around the 4th week and 8th week, so that you have definitely told them exactly what's going on, and then they can be exited if needed.
Cool. How often should you review policies and procedures, and also employee agreements?
So employee agreements tend to be reviewed every time there is a change. It could be a legislative change or a change in their terms. So that's really subjective. But generally, if there aren't any, I tend to say review them every year. For policies and procedures, same principle. If there's something changed, then obviously you need to update it. Otherwise, you're probably looking on a 3-year cycle.
Cool. And I've just got one more question, unless any more come through. Which website is best, Seek or Trade Me, for finding people that are like graphic designers and in the art sort of area?
I would probably go with Seek. Trade Me took a little bit of a hit around the COVID time, post-COVID. So they used to be really cool for, I would say, probably roles that were paying about 60 to 65,000 per year less. So they were great for those types of roles. And then Seek tended to have the market on 60 and above. But actually now it seems to be Seek seems to be taking over from Trade Me.
Cool. I just had another one come through. And nowadays, what is considered a good length of employment in a job compared to back in the day when long service was 20 odd years?
Yeah, those days have gone. I think the average, it was about 24 months, so you're probably only talking a couple of years. of an average stint, shall we say.
Cool. Awesome. I think that's all the questions we've had come through. Thank you very much for sharing with us today, Anna. Really, really valuable stuff in there. And thank you everybody who joined. It was really good to have you all here, and hopefully we'll see you all at the next one next month.